I can't touch the bottom.
Panic, panic. I should not put them on my face.
It's an eyesore. Where's the loo? I suddenly feel I need to go. Beautiful, isn't it? Absolutely beautiful. This time in the morning, it's stunning. England, well, Great Britain, is an island. England making up, of course, the larger portion of it, and as such, it's surrounded by water. And the coastline naturally changes as the geology of this island changes. And it gets quite dramatic as you circumnavigate round. But here, where I am in Worthing, it's really quite benign as a coastline on the south coast in West Sussex. There's no steep cliffs, not here. A little further east there are the cliffs, the White Cliffs of Dover and the Seven Sisters. But here in Worthing, it's very flat. There's no craggy rock pools and boulders to clamber over. Sadly, there's no dinosaur footprints here on the sand, or at least I've never found any. Maybe there were at some time, but they've been washed away. Worthing is, of course, a seaside resort, but if you go back only, say, 300 years or so, you'll find that actually people weren't rushing down to the coast with bucket and spade to build sand castles just for the mere pleasure of building them and then watching the sea wash them away when the tide comes in. In fact, in this area, like so many of the coastal towns, the seaside was merely a place for fishermen and farming just inland. It's hard to imagine that now when you look at the landscape here, that it was such a quiet sort of place. But when you got into the 18th century, people started to become interested in their health, and that changed everything. By the early 1700s, we had spa towns, springs of natural water, those containing iron, like the Calibret springs at Tunbridge Wells, were attracting the well-to-do to take the waters. At some point, there was a doctor who had a word with a royal personage, I forget which, and advised him that taking to the waters on the sea would be good. Seawater, drinking a pint of seawater, immersing the body into seawater would be a good idea, and was a cure-all for all manner of maladies. And the king and the other court members did this, gave it a go, And of course, what was good for the king, or a prince, or a princess, or even a queen, was good enough for the masses. And soon, the rest of the hoi polloi started to descend to these coastal regions to take the waters. Yes, it's a boat. One of the things I used to do as a kid was go on a lilo on the sea. My parents would take me down to Worthing and I would be on a lilo. I've got these old photographs on slides. Unfortunately, I can't get them off the slides to show you, but I'd love to. When I had my kids and they were young, or when my kids were young, I should say, we bought these boats and we would take them down and bung them on the sea, and the kids would be merry as anything for ages. This boat I found in my shed. It must be 20 years old. This is the first time I've managed to get it out. Is it blowing up all right, Julia?
Yep, he's doing fine.
So,
didn't want to overdo it.
No. So we thought we ought to recreate the seaside experience of boating and hopefully not too much capsizing. Right, I'm feeling fit and ready to take to the sea. How about you, madam?
As a fiddle.
As a fiddle. Right, I haven't got any rowing oars, so we may have to paddle with our finger hands. So let's get the boat and let's try boating at the seaside. Yay! Oh, that's cold.
There's a big wave coming! Right. Those big ones are coming every now and then. Ah! When we climb once we get past them. Can I just say?
Yeah.
It's much colder than I thought it would be.
Yes. I didn't mean to do that.
Really?
No, I really didn't.
Something in me doesn't believe you.
No, I really didn't. I really didn't mean. I just fell backwards.
That was so funny. It's just a bad timing there. Woohoo!
Luckily, the tide is coming in. So in theory, we shouldn't get washed out to shore because we sure ain't got no oars.
Told you, once we got past the breaking waves there, we're all right. It's nice and bobbing along lovely and gently.
Anita, push us back that way.
Who's Anita do?
What? Who's Anita?
Who's Anita when she's on the sea?
Anita's a friend of mine. Keep filming. Oh my god. Is it moving? I can't touch the bottom.
Panic, panic.
I can't touch the bottom because
it's too deep.
Yes, it's too deep. I can swim.
You'd have to go.
But we might have to paddle. Hang on, I'm coming back in. We'll have to paddle.
Paddle it is.
Oh God. Right. Oh, we. Hey! Oh, I got wet again. Oh, she's a swine. Sorry about that.
Oopsie! Yeah, I deserved that. Oh, but we're level with our stuff again.
Yes. So, back to the shore and a cup of tea.
That sounds perfection.
Yes. This time I can touch the floor.
Woo! That was a big one. That's my bum on the floor.
Well done.
That was good fun.
This is the underside of Worthing Pier. We've had a number of piers here over the years, full of crustaceans and seaweed. Piers originally were really no more than landing jetties. Steam-powered paddle ships, the paddle steamers, would bring day trippers down from places like London across the coast and would moor up on the jetty here and would take all these people, hard-working, working-class people who were here for either the day or possibly for a holiday for a week, and they would, in their hordes, come thundering down the jetty and get onto the prom. It wasn't initially a place of entertainment in its own right, but as time went on, people actually returned onto the jetty, not just to get back onto the steam paddle and to go home, but to enjoy the splendour of walking on the sea. Look at it. I wonder how many people do bother to come down and have a look at the structure itself. It's an amazing feat of engineering. It was in the decade of the 1880s, really, that 10-year period when most of the seaside piers were being built. Every coastal seaside resort worth its salt wanted a pier, and we had over 100 of them all around the country. Amazing. Now, sadly, I think we have half that number. They are prone to fire and just decay, I guess. Shame. It's so quintessential English. We're taking a stroll along the prom, like those Victorians did in those times, in the promenading. Well, Victorians, Edwardians, Georgians, all of them.
I thought you were going to say, like in times long gone.
Like in times long gone.
Walking along the prom, like in times long gone.
That's a better way of putting it. You have a way with words. And we're stopping here by the Lido. Here it is, look, the Lido. And of course, Lidos were another way of people getting out and about to have outdoor swimming in the great fresh air. And it's curious really that you'd put a Lido down by the sea. But I guess they would fill it up with cleanish water rather than seawater.
And it'd be shallower than the sea gets quite quickly, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
I suppose.
When I was in that boat and I fell out and couldn't touch the bottom, I was slightly concerned.
I could see a bit of panic in you.
Yes, it was. I remember the light now, I should say, it's basically entertainment. At weekends and during the season. We're not quite in the season, even though we're filming in June. It's not quite the main season.
Hasn't fully kicked off yet, has it?
No, the summer holidays are yet to be here, so everything's at half measure, really. But they have like a very toddler's, what would you call it, a toddler's...
I'd say it's a toddler's fun fair time.
Yes.
There's a little roller coaster, there's a bouncy, slidey thing that they climb up and slide down.
Yeah, an
inflatable death slide, I think.
That's it, and trampolines.
Yeah, trampoline a bit, yeah.
And
then
all
there's
of
the
that.
arcade as well.
Yes, and all of that. But now, before that, of course, the Lido, it was an open-air swimming pool, as I hinted at. And I remember that coming down to the coast here in Worthing, and you could peer through the windows here. Before these were now the souvenir places, and you could see the people swimming about and having lots of fun. And there was a bandstand, which there still is, just down here. And they would play tunes as you swam.
Oh, wow.
You can imagine back in Victorian times or Edwardian times.
How grand it would have been.
And that seems to be something that I find very strange, is missing from a lot of seaside places today. That grandeur, that spectacle, that magnificence, the imagination that the Georgians and the Victorians had in that time. We play it so down now, which is a shame. There's a scene in that fairly recent motion picture, Stan and Ollie, in which they're on tour and they filmed a sequence at the Lido, and they're giving out prizes to I think a fancy dress or something like that. And I can't remember now what goes on in the sequence. There's either an argument or one of them collapses and they have to get a doctor. And I'm fascinated by seaside architecture because it's so different really once you get inland. And for me, that's something I just think that particularly the council here, but it seems to be across the board, they forget that the architecture by the sea has its own unique style and features, and yet you'll see, as we're going to have a look at shortly, they forget. And
some of the modern architecture is not quite so...
It's not so... well, it could be anywhere. It's like
inspiring?
Yes,
maybe?
Or inspiring, or even nautical in nature, or part of the area.
It's not very traditional, is it?
No. And it could be anywhere. Inner urban city architecture, boring, is becoming very everyday. And these pieces like the pier and the Lido here and some of the wonderful Georgian houses and the Dome Cinema, of course, they're left stranded in all this modern mediocre rubbish. Colours today,
absolutely stunning,
absolutely amazing, just fantastic. And one of the pleasures of living by the sea for me particularly, because I'm only a stone's throw really, it's a 7-minute walk.
Just the best for me, I think. I'm 300 metres from the sea.
Yeah.
My house.
But for me to come down and go onto the pier,
Oh yes.
and then walk across the water, which when the pier was constructed must have been a magical thing to do.
I mean, even now it's a special thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's not the longest pier, of course, in England. Southend-on-Sea is the longest one, and that is 1.3 miles
Wow.
that it juts out. I mean, can you imagine? I've never been on it, actually. I would like to go on it.
It would be special.
It is a huge, and there's a train, of course, that you can go on.
No kidding?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. What I like about this particular pier is it's very much unadorned. You know, if you go to Brighton, it's very much a kiss me quick type pier with all the...
jam-packed with all these different attractions.
Yeah. So this is the lovely old jetty. I love this. I think this is a particular and quite unique feature for Worthing, or for piers generally. I don't know how many other piers. I mean, I haven't visited many piers in reality, but being able to come onto this jetty where the steam packets used to, or the steam paddle steamers, yeah, used to come, and we used to have one until quite recently called the Waverley, and it was reconditioned, and you could come and get on I think it was something like the Jurassic coast, so it would go from here and go all the way down to Dorset, and you could travel on it. It was just
fantastic. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But just the sound down here, just a few feet below the main deck of the pier, the water hitting all of these pillars down here is awesome.
It does make you
really
feel
nice.
like you're on a boat.
Yeah. Well, sounds like you are, but there's no rocking.
No, that's what I
No
meant.
sea legs necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an area called Splash Point. Not quite sure why it's got its name, but it's a very famous area in Worthing, I suppose. It's a renowned place. I think maybe because at one time the way the tide worked, that you used to get massive, great big waves that would, in high tide, would come in and just at this point, just the way the beach worked, and splash up, I think. It's a strange place, really, because it's been redesigned, I suppose, in the last 10 years or so. And it's got all this slate, big blocks of slate, which of course are not natural on the chalky south coast here. We've got the South Downs with flint and chalk, and yet this site was redeveloped. You see, this is the council for you, and lumps of slate were brought here, and in the ground there are these little sprays that give you a mist when it's working, and the kids are supposed to come in and play around in here. But to my mind it was just completely ill thought out, really. You see, this is a seaside town, and as I mentioned before, we don't have cliffs, we don't have chunks of slate as our natural stone, and it's just bizarre that such a feature would be placed here. My vision to have here would have been one of a mock-up of a full-size Victorian bathing hut, you know, the big wooden sheds, effectively, these huts on big hooped wheels with the stairs coming down that you see in all the old photographs, with perhaps some mannequins of a woman, a Victorian woman, coming down, taking the water, a dipper at her side, and perhaps some children, and maybe a man over there perhaps watching, and and all of that. Just something that summed up the historical sense of what the seaside was about here. Maybe with a Punch and Judy, a mocked up Punch and Judy with some Punch and Judy puppets in there, in this area, so that you could learn about it. I know this is interactive, but there's no connection between here and this town's history, which I find just bizarre. Oh yeah, there we go, you can see through it. Oh, you're going to think I'm terribly cynical, because here is another bad design, waste of space. And this replaced something that Worthing had that was great. Okay, I get it. They've got the round pebbles, they're smooth, so at least when the kids play in this area with the water that squirts up from the bottom, they're not going to graze their legs or hurt themselves as they might do at Splash Point with all the slate. But there was something so much better here back in the Victorians period. Okay, I may have got that wrong, not the Victorians. It says 1937 to 38. There was a lovely paddling pool. My kids used to go to the paddling pool. We used to take them down there, huge paddling pool, hundreds. When it was packed out, it was only about, I don't know, 18 inches deep at the most, but the kids thoroughly enjoyed it. They loved it, and it was just a haven for young parents with kids during the summer holidays and at weekends to bring them. It's just not that now. There was a boating lake, if you like, and then there was Peter Pan's, which was a sort of an adventure playground as well. And as well as you've got the beach and the sea.
What's so special about it?
Earlier we mentioned about the seaside architecture and how things would used to blend in and have meaning and purpose, and there was that nautical theme and the Art Deco and Regency and all of that. And now we have this. Some backhanders probably went on, some big money pass hands. And this complex, right on the seafront, millionaires' apartments, amazingly enough, with this beautiful, I can see why today it would be fantastic, but it's an eyesore. You can see this single tower from Sisbury Ring looking down over Worthing. This one sticks up, and my worry is that they'll build more of these sort of things and really blight the town. Quite why it was allowed to be made, I do not know. It's one of those Marmite buildings. You either love it or you hate it, and I think you can probably work out what I feel about it. Now, you might remember in the previous episode, Julia was given this wonderful Knickerbocker Glory to eat in our whimsy that we did. It wasn't real, of course, because we were outside. It was a reasonably sunny day. Took a while to do the filming, and if it had been real ice cream, it would have melted. But I want to know, as somebody who's got a van and likes to travel around in the van, could I make my own ice cream rather than buying a commercial product? You can use whipped cream and condensed milk, and then of course your flavouring. And so, it's now time to try out the ice creamer. Is the ice cream, I hope you like ice cream by the way.
I do like ice cream,
Thank God
actually,
for that.
as it happens.
Is the homemade ice cream any good? Well, this looks like the absolute perfect place to do this. A nice little picnic table. Fortunately, we're right next to the swimming pool, which is a pretty ugly building, but
Really ignore that, but this otherwise is a perfect spot.
so we'll just go and check that we've got all the ingredients here on the table.
Strawberries,
Check.
scoop,
Check.
cutting board,
Check.
wafer cones,
Oh yes.
ice cream.
Yes, in a big bag over here, in a cool bag.
Jolly good, I believe we are ready.
Knife.
Knife.
Cut the
Knife.
strawberries with. So here we go. 2 ice creams. They do look delicious, don't they? They're homemade. This is, you know, it's not that commercial product that you buy. Not knocking it by any means. People have got to make a living, and that's what we could have done in the video to show ice cream. But making it yourself just adds that certain personal touch.
Je ne sais quoi.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Favavou.
Yes, fabulous.
Fabulous.
They're melting, so shall we give them a go?
F-A-B.
Yes, I'm interested to know what you think of my homemade.
No, it's gorgeous.
Ice
It's
cream.
really tasty.
We've come into the arcade just briefly, and we've met up with a chap called Paul, who runs Blue Flame Vision, which does all sorts of things, including glasses, but not exclusive to glasses. And we met him the other day, and we thought we'll pop in. And as we had the ice cream, we thought, why don't we give him the ice cream, as he's a genuine person, not us, and see what he makes of the homemade ice cream. So Paul,
Hi.
lovely to meet you.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you.
Are we giving you the ice cream? You're still standing. You haven't
Yeah,
passed
still
out.
going well. Yeah.
What do you think?
It's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I'm very impressed.
Oh,
yeah, really
I'm
enjoying
so
it.
pleased
Yeah.
you said
In
that.
fact, it's almost gone.
Yes. Well, you keep munching that, and
I
we're going to
will
have a
do.
little look at your shop.
Thanks very
and,
much.
And a quick gander at the arcade, which has been here since what?
Since 1925.
1925.
Yeah.
What do you think of these?
They are funky.
I should not put them on my face.
Are they sort of
I
slightly
love
retro?
them. They are.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
They're slightly cat-eye, I think, aren't they? I don't know. It's just.
Yeah.
It's you.
Oh!
Well, I certainly know where I'm going to come now for my next pair of glasses. These have actually got a bit of super glue on them, and they're holding together. But there's such an amazing array of shapes. I might have to go for something round or oblong, or who knows. Well, I hope I haven't been too critical in some of my observations here. We've really only scraped the surface of what a seaside town can be, and I've been exploring just this one here where I live, and so I of course have been here over 30 years, and so my opinions about it are again likely to be completely different to somebody else. There's a magic at the seaside. There is something special about living by the sea. The air, the aroma, the clarity, the drama. It's been very peaceful at this time of year, but you do get the tide smashing against the shore, you get the winds, you get the floods, you get the flotsam and the jetsam that ends up on here. There's so much we could have talked about, and maybe I'll do another video in which we look at different aspects of living by the seaside. I would love to visit many more coastal resorts and see how each one differs. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this, and thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye for now. Bye bye.